Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another pen for review, and this is a Bexley. Now, I have never reviewed a Bexley pen before, so let's have a look at this. This is a lovely Bexley logo there in gold that you can see there. And then when I tilt the box over, it says Fine American Made Writing Instruments. So this is Bexley. Now Bexley is actually a company created by Emmanuel or Manu from ASC Pens, which has now rebranded itself to the Pen family. Yes, that does get a little bit confusing. But this is a brand that he created along with some others, and this is one of their newer pens. And this is, I guess, a special pen, and I'll show you why. So we have here made in USA, and then we have a leather sort of box. So let me remove this and I will show you there. You get a nice tanned leather box that says Bexley, and if I open the lid, you'll see here there is a lovely Bexley pen. Now, before we go into the pen, you also get this sort of padded pouch. I thought it was actually a pen sleeve actually, but it's not. It's just a, I guess, padded that just sits there, which is actually a shame. I would have liked that to have been a pen pouch actually, but there you go. You have a Bexley Activate Your Warranty card, and you'll see there, Bexley USA family, Bexley pens are guaranteed for 18 months against mechanical failures. And then you have the Fine American Made Writing Instruments, and again, to activate your warranty, visit BexleyPenUSA.com. And that's just or I guess a bookmark. You could use that as if you wanted to. And you also have this here, and it says BexleyPenUSA.com, and again, Fine American Writing Instruments, or Fine American Made Writing Instruments, I should say. So you have the pen here, and this is actually what I would suggest is a special pen. This is the Bexley Golden Age Limited Edition pen. Now, this comes in two different sort of trim colours. So first of all, you get a Bexley tag here, which I can just remove, and then you have the pen in all its glory. So this is the Waves edition. So the Waves edition basically has the gold trim, and the Triangles version has the rhodium or silver coloured trim. So this is the Waves edition. I'm just looking there just to make sure I get that right, and I'm just trying to line this Arco pattern up so you can see it there in a little bit better light. So like with a lot of these, this is an Omas Arco. This is an Omas Arco Verde material. It's a celluloid material, and there are normally a number of different threads that allow you to line that Arco pattern up, so there is not one single thread. So it can take 2 or 3 turns to line that up. So I think let's look at this pen in a little bit more detail. The cap finial there has a gold plated finial, and it has the Bexley logo. You then also have what is effectively, it's hard to see here, but 2 bands, 2 gold bands that have this sort of knurling going on, and I can actually feel texture on these bands where you can see those sort of like semicircles. And then you have the Bexley clip, and this I would say is probably a little bit more like a traditional clip that you would find on a pen, although it's a little bit more has a little bit more of a curvature to it. But it is actually quite or I should say very tight clip. It's very, very difficult to activate that clip for me. To be honest, I much prefer lighter clips where I can actually move the clip a little bit more if I wanted to put it into my shirt pocket. Traditionally, I don't normally put pens into my shirt pockets because normally if I go to bend over, they'll probably fall out, and maybe that's why you need a tighter clip. Now, you also get this cap band here, and I initially thought that this cap band was the top part of this band was the cap band, and the bottom part where it says Bexley Golden Age, I thought that that was actually part of the body, but no, it's actually part of the entire cap that you can see there. So if I just show you a little bit more before I show you the nib, the pen sort of tapers out to the midpoint here, tapers back into the cap band, and again this is a two-step band, and then the pen starts to taper back out around here to the end cap. And this end cap again has that pattern going on, and it's a dual layered or two, or I'd say two cap bands or two bands there, but it's actually not. It's actually like a step really that's going on there. But you can see there that the sort of detail there in those bands. Now, this Arco is really lovely. I do like the Arco Verde a lot. I do have some Arco Verdes, actually have quite a few. I also have Arco Browns, but for me, I start to like the Arco Verde a little bit more. So if I unscrew the cap now, you'll see here that this pen is actually a little bit more on the shorter side of pens that I am used to. And you'll see here a number of things. So the first thing is this nib is a Bexley nib, and I do like that flourishing on that nib there. Now, this is an 18 karat gold nib with the Bexley logo. Now, this is laser etched. I can actually feel the texture on that nib there, on that pattern. It does come with an ebonite feed or feeder, and you can see that there. And you do have these gold bands here, and again, it's a step down on that band. But the idea there is to try and stop your fingers hitting the nib, or more so the feed, and getting inky. Now, what you will see here also is that this section tapers down a lot. And I'm not a fan of thin section pens, and for me, this is a little bit too thin. And that section itself is actually quite a taper down at that point from the threads. Now, I probably would want to hold this a little bit more higher on the threads, so that way I can sort of comfortably use the pen a little bit more, because I find I get a lot of hand cramp if I'm trying to grip a thinner section pen. So for me, I'd say that it's more comfortable for me to hold it up here, but then I am holding it on the threads, and I do feel this step down here, and I do find that this pen is a little bit too short. So for me, I'd want to probably post this cap, and there's nothing wrong in posting this cap, but because of these bands here have some texture on them, and you also have the threads there in the cap, I'm a little bit worried that either I would scratch these, or I might actually damage the threads. So for me, I honestly don't feel, and when I put this on here, I can actually feel it grating. So for me, that I'm not a fan of that. I do like it where there's a little bit of Arco left over though. I do wonder though, are these cap bands screwed into place or glued into place? Like, is there celluloid under these bands? Or is this sort of end finial here, this little bit of Arco glued in to the end of it? So I do worry about whether or not this might come off over time. It certainly is possible, because celluloid can expand. Now, in terms of the pen itself, I think let's have a look here. Now, you do have this, again, another gold ring here. And if I unscrew this, you'll see it's got a cartridge converter. And this is just a standard sort of cartridge converter, really, although this is glued into place, so you cannot remove it. Now, this actually reminds me of almost the Visconti Gen 1 power fillers. So you would have this integrated sort of almost a converter, and then you would have an ink window there. So unfortunately, like, although I think this is a button, it doesn't actually do anything. And I've seen something similar to this on the Conway Stewart USA pens. So I kind of think that maybe they were meant for this, but there's no way that that will pull off. So this is going to hold about 0.7 milliliters of ink. It's not going to be a huge amount of ink because of that. Maybe it'll hold a little bit more actually, maybe around a milliliter and a half, because it is a more girthier converter. Now, you do have metal threads inside the body there, so it is metal on metal threads, which I tend to like because you can spin them a little bit more easier, and you're not going to worry about cracking threads so much. But for me, I like the pen. I guess I like the material more than the pen. I find that this pen is a little bit more lightweight compared to, say, some of my other Arco pens. Like, for instance, if I were to, let me screw this back on again, and if I get the pattern right. So if I was to show you that alongside an ASC Bologna, you kind of see the difference there. It is a much smaller pen, but I do like the design of it, and I do like the Arco pattern, and I do also like that there is no imprint on this celluloid as well. I'm not a great fan of imprints on celluloids, and I would much prefer, really like on this Bexley, it to be there more on that cap band, which you can see just there. So I guess I like the pen, but for me it's just a little bit on the smaller side compared to the larger size of the Armando Simone Club Bologna Extra pens. But I guess for a lot of people do like smaller pens, so I can see why this might attract more to some people versus other people. Personally, I prefer larger pens. So for me, I'd much prefer to go for something like a Bologna Extra than something that's a lot smaller. Now, these pens actually still retail for $945 US on the Bexley or the Pen Family website. So these are still not cheap pens. Now, the Armando Simone Club Bologna Extras, made by Pen Family or ASC, the same company, or the same people, was around about $1,000 to $1,100 US. So really only about probably 50 to 100 more than this one. But I think nowadays they're probably selling for around about $1,300 US. So you're getting this one for a bit cheaper, maybe several $100s cheaper. Is it worth that? Well, you get less material, so I guess, yeah, probably it is. But the Arco Verdes and Arco Browns are not cheap pens because of the celluloid material, because the material is quite scarce now. So from that perspective, I think if you want a pen like this, you're going to be paying a little bit more for it because of that celluloid. So I think let's do a size check, a weight check, we'll do a pen comparison, and then we'll do a writing sample. So the length of the pen, we're looking at about 131 millimeters in length, and the length of the cap, we're looking at 60 millimeters. And then if I take the cap off and show you that, we are looking at about 118 millimeters. So it is a short pen. It's not a long pen by any stretch, as you could see there from the ASC Bologna. Now, if I show you here, it's not an overly lightweight pen. It's just over 44 grams in weight. So there is quite a bit of metal on that pen. But it's not an immensely heavy pen. The cap does, to me, feel very light at just over 14.5 grams. But you'll notice here that most of this is in the body of the pen. So we're looking at really just under 30 grams. So it is actually, I guess that the pen weight itself is actually quite weighty, and it does feel more weighty. But it doesn't feel as weighty or as, I'd say, balanced as, say, an Armando Simone Club Bologna Extra. So I think let's do a comparison with other pens. So, from left to right, we have a Pelikan M800, and this is the Royal Gold Rawdon. We have a Molteni Modello 55S in the Royal Blue Lucents. We have an Armando Simone Club Bologna Extra, and this is the Black Gold Lucents. We have an Armando Simone Club Bologna Extra Arco Brown. We have the Bexley Golden Age Waves. We have the Armando Simone Club Ogiva, and this is the Tribute, which is effectively an Omos Ogiva size, and you can see the difference here in sizes. This is a much smaller pen. We have a Classic Pens LM1 in the Flame Red. We have a Twisby Vax 700R. We have a Montegrappa Extra 1930 Shiny Lines Dove. And we have a Scribo 3 in the Bologna Blue. So, let's do a writing sample. So, this is the Bexley, and it's the Golden Ages, and it is the limited edition, and it's called The Waves. Now, this is an 18 karat gold nib, and it's also in the Arco Verde finish. Now, this is a Bock nib, and for me, this is writing really nicely, and that Ebonite feed, I think, really helps a lot. Now, there is really no designation on there, like all of the ASC nibs, to what kind of nib grade it is. I would hazard a guess to say that this is a medium nib because of the line that it's putting down. Now, this is an 18 karat gold nib. Now, that's the kind of line variation it's putting down to start with. Now, if I push the nib a little bit more, you can get a little bit more line variation out of this. So, this is an 18 karat gold nib. I personally wouldn't push this too much because gold nibs, certainly a lot of 18 karat gold nibs, will not push that much. You can get a little bit of line variation coming out of that nib. Now, in terms of ink test, let's see how wet this is. I think you can see it's quite a wet pen already, but we'll just do this as a test. We'll do a horizontal and a vertical pass. I would say that this is really bordering on being a fire hose pen. This really is a wet writing pen. Now, in terms of I'm going to try and line this pattern up again and still not get it right. In terms of this pen, it writes very, very smoothly. I do not have any issue whatsoever with the nib on this. This nib writes, I would say, not 100% smooth, probably about 90% smooth. It has a slight feedback to it, but it's almost really unnoticeable. It's kind of a smoothness that you will get out of a really good tuned nib. Now, this is a Bock nib, and I have had a lot of variations in terms of how Bock nibs write, likewise ASC nibs, because ASC nibs are Bock nibs, and likewise this is a Bexley which is using a Bock nib. Ultimately, you can get variations. For me, this nib writes very well. It puts down a very, very good amount of wetness for me, and I have to say I like this pen. Now, initially, when I saw this pen, I thought, you know what, I didn't like it because the size of the pen, the weight of the pen isn't as maybe weighty as I'm used to more lately in my ASC Bolognas, and literally the size of the pen for me really is a bit short. But I think it's a good pen, and I think if you wanted to pick up an Arco Verde, but you wanted to pick up either a smaller pen or you can't get a Bologna Extra in the Arco Verde, then I would say that this is probably a good alternative. Would I be buying this pen? I do like my Arco Verde, and although I would buy a lot of Arco Verde, potentially, a number of things have to actually fit there for me, and the size of the pen is one of them, the weight of the pen is another, so that's two things that I always look out for. The writing experience of the pen, which is the third, and then the material of the pen. And for me, I love the material of the pen, but I don't like the size, and I don't like the weight. But I do like how it writes. So for me, it checks 2 out of 4 boxes. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for everybody. I know a lot of people would actually say that this would actually tick probably a lot more boxes for them. But for me, I probably wouldn't be adding this to my collection because it doesn't tick all of those boxes. I'm becoming a little bit more, I guess, refined in what I want in my collection, so that I'm not constantly selling pens, buying and selling, buying and selling. And for me, although it's a beautiful pen, it just doesn't tick all the boxes for me. So this unfortunately won't be a pen that I'll be adding to my collection, at least I believe not, but maybe I'll rethink that maybe in weeks or months to come. But for now, this pen will be going back to John at St John's Pens, who thankfully loaned me this pen for review. So I'd like to thank John at stjohnspens.com. He goes to all of the UK and European pen shows, and if you want to check him out, go to one of the pen shows across UK or Europe. If you can't get to a pen show anytime soon, then you can check out John at stjohnspens.com or St John's Pens on Instagram. So again, thanks to John for loaning me this pen for review and being able to show this off to you today. So that's my review of the Bexley Golden Ages Limited Edition Waves 18 karat gold Arco Verde pen. Thanks for watching, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.